Thanks, Victor. Okay, so are you on page 45 or a separate sheet? Angel, are you ready on this one? You're gonna like this one. I think you are. Again, I'm afraid to predict, but I think you might like this one. Okay, who wants, any chance you wanna, you don't have your glasses. Who, does anybody want to read this side? And I'm sorry about my printer, it's going bad too. You can see it?
No.
It's,
You want me to go up and read it?
Go, Sonny, go.
okay, come on, Sonny. I'm sorry about my printer and I'm sorry about the lousy,
What did it say?
I can't see.
Wait, which one? This one?
this one. Do this one first.
I like cute glasses.
We find assets to pay for liabilities. We will not take on a liability without first finding an asset to pay for it.
And then now that I say that, read the second one too.
Ah. Not Porsche. Porsche, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How Buying a Porsche Made Me Richer by Robert Kiyosaki.
Okay, you ready? So, did you hear all that? Here's this one. Thank you, Sonny. Thank you so much. So, we find assets. Kevin, you ready?
Yeah.
Ready? We find assets to pay for liabilities. We will not take on a liability without first finding an asset to pay for it. First of all, this is not from me. This is from Robert Kiyosaki. He's fame, okay? He did the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series on, he grew up with a dad who was a poor dad, and his friend had a dad who was a rich dad, and he talks about the differences in the habits of those adults, right? And so he's written some very famous books. And I highly recommend them. This is just one item from that. Just one item. So first of all, he talks about assets and liabilities. These are financial terms. Does anybody know what an asset is? Kind of like a loan. Maybe. Then what would be a liability? Something that you're purchasing. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. You guys want to learn some financial terms. They're going to serve you well long term in your life. All right? So here's how he describes an asset. An asset is something that pays you money. Can you give me an example? You see where I'm headed, though, with liability. I appreciate that. Thank you. So an asset is something that pays you money. Give me an example. So here's where job is only slightly right. A job is something that pays you by the hour, right? You have to do work to do that, right? So a job is kind of excluded from this. Think of something like a job that pays you, but it's not a job. What do you come up with? So let me help you here, okay? Because this is a bit out of your depth maybe for the moment, but very quickly you're going to be in this arena yourself. Do any of you possibly know people that own real estate and rent it out to other people?
My mom kind of does that. Yeah, like one of the rooms in our house is rented to like my older brother's friend.
So his parent in their house, they have an extra room. They rent it out to a tenant. A tenant is somebody that rents a room. The tenant pays money each month. Are you able to tell us how much each month?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know. Got it. Yeah, you may not, your parents may be doing all kinds of things and they may not always share things with you, right? I don't know if that's good or bad. It just depends on the way your parent is and decides to do, right? Okay, so did you hear that, Sonny? Does this make sense what an asset is? Something that pays you. So money's coming into the family and the household, and they're not actually really working for it. They're just renting out that room, right? What do they really do for this? It's more of a passive type of income, right? They don't have to do necessarily anything. As long as the tenant keeps paying and living there, they've got money coming in. Fair enough? So now, Sonny, go for a liability. What's a liability?
Kind of like a responsibility.
Good.
For like a lot specifically.
Yes. In financial terms, it's something you owe money for. Okay. If you go out and buy a new car on payments, asset or liability? Yeah, everybody say liability.
Liability.
Because you're paying for that car. The money's going out of your pocket for the car. I know you got the car, right? But the car's not generating any money. Okay, say you could take that same car. Say you could do this. I don't know if we can or not. You you rented the car to someone who's using it and paying you money. Asset or liability? Now it's an asset. It's turned into an asset, right? Okay, so you got the two sides of this, right? So here's the idea of asset and liability in your life, potentially, for you to think about. Here's a story. You ready? You guys know what a Porsche is?
It's a car.
Okay, do you say Porsche different than me? Anybody pronounce Porsche differently? Yes, some people say Porsche. Everybody say Porsche. Do you know what kind of car it is?
Porsche.
Porsche? You know this? You know Porsche? You know where it's made?
I don't actually.
Italy. Yeah.
Close? Very close. Germany. I think. As long as I have this right, a Porsche is German. A Ferrari, I think, is Italian, is Italy. Okay, but you get the idea. You know it's an expensive car. You know it's a luxury car. You know it's maybe a sports car. They're fast, right? You with me on this? Not like your average, like I drive an average car, right, to and from work. I don't drive a Porsche, right? Although Dr. She does, who works here. Anyway, let's stay on topic. So here's his story. Are you ready for the story?
Yeah.
He wants to buy a classic Porsche. The Porsche is worth $150,000. You tracking so far? It's a recession. So the Porsche is now available for $50,000, a good deal on this car. And it's special. It's, I don't know, one of the first made of some model. Are you with me on this? Like a collector's kind of car, right? But the car costs money. He's going to have to buy it and pay money, right? Now he's got $50,000 in the bank. But because of this cash flow vow, his wife won't let him spend it. His wife and him agreed on, or partner, let's say his partner and him agreed on, right? We will find an asset to pay for the liability. So he can't go buy the car until he finds an asset. Okay, this is his story. I'm just retelling his story. It's in his book. It's in one of his books, okay? So, and he's written, I don't know, a lot of books. But, so what's he do? He goes out and finds a piece of real estate. Do you know what a storage unit is? You guys have, maybe your parents have a storage unit where they, you go, the door rolls up and you have like a little space and you rent it each month, right? You pay so much, I don't know, $100 or something to rent that space to store your stuff in it, a storage unit. He buys the whole storage unit. Okay, the whole building. The whole thing costs, let's see if I get my numbers right. The whole thing costs $250,000. I don't know how many units it is. Okay? He has to put down $50,000 on a loan to get the money to borrow to pay the $250,000 to buy the storage unit. Still tracking all this? Okay, there's a car, he wants it, can't have it yet, 50 grand. He's got the 50 grand, but his wife says no. His partner says no. Okay, so he says, I'll go find a storage unit, $250,000. I'll take the $50,000, put it as a down payment, and now the bank gives me the other $200,000 to buy the storage unit. You good on this so far? Kind of tracking? The storage unit is rented to a lot of different people who pay whatever they pay to rent the units. You okay with this? The storage unit makes enough money to cover its debt, about $3,000 to cover the $200,000 loan, and it has an extra $1,000 in profit above what it costs to pay the loan. So he takes the $1,000 and goes out and borrows another $50,000, buys the car, and the $1,000 pays the loan on the $50,000 car. How did you track? Did you track? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, raise your hand if you think you get the full picture. Raise your hand if you think you got half the picture. Okay, good. I appreciate that. Let me try again. He wants to buy this Porsche, $50,000. He's got the money, but doesn't just go buy it. Instead, goes and buys an asset, a storage unit for $250,000, puts the 50 down, and you know how banks work. They won't just give you $250 to buy the unit. They want you to put money in too, right? It's called skin in the game. Because they don't want you to leave with their money, right? They don't want you to walk away from the property. So if you put your 50 in, they know you're not leaving, right? Now they'll put their 200 in and you make them payments on the 200. And it's $3,000 a month that costs. But the storage unit generates enough income to pay the 3,000 and have 1,000 extra. The 1,000 extra he takes and goes and borrows another 50,000, buys the car, and the payment on that, because that 50,000 is now a loan, he uses the $1,000 to pay that loan on the Porsche. Do you see what he's done though? He's got the liability, he's got the toy he wants, right? But along with it, he has this giant asset, this piece of real estate that's generating income, like in your mom's case, for almost doing nothing. What's he really doing? I mean, there's some management involved, right?
But doesn't he still owe money? Like, since he like borrowed 200K for the like whole storage
Good.
unit.
He owes that 200K on the storage unit. Good.
And then he like.
But isn't that being paid for by itself? Right? And you know the way a loan works. Even if it's a 30-year loan, at some point, the loan does what? Gets paid off.
Yeah.
So it's covered. So yes, he has a loan, but the payments are covered by the asset. Is this okay?
He
So
doesn't even have to worry about it.
He
Because it's paying itself.
it's paying itself. Not only that, it's generating $1,000 extra. Are you following me?
Okay.
Did you follow the story? Did you follow it, Sonny? Okay. So he ended up with his toy, but he also ended up with this asset that now produces for him and his family for the rest of his life potentially, right? And if the loan paid off and the Porsche paid off, he would now have $4,000 a month, enough like an income. Wouldn't even have to work anymore, right? Wouldn't need a job because you have that. You following all this? Okay, here's your assignment. Let's go to the assignment because that took a long time for me to set up. Go to page 45. Write about what an asset is, what a liability is, and what liabilities do you want, and how much income from assets do you need to pay for them. So a little complicated. He wanted a Porsche. That's a liability. I want you to write down what liabilities you want. Just think of what you want. Think of how much it costs. And then think of an asset that you would have to purchase to pay for that. Fair enough? That's your assignment right on page 45.